Hello, welcome everybody to another episode of Arthur's Roundtable. We're super happy to have Samuel Gibson here with Hadron Energy. This I've been looking forward to this not only because I've been tracking what Hadron and Sam have been doing, and but it's right in the crosshairs of what everybody's been talking about in terms of the lack of energy that we may be dealing with go presently and going forward. So we'll get into that. But Sam, thanks for doing this today. Super appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Arthur. It's great to be here. Excited to share some more.
So start just a little bit so people have some context with your background, and then there's lots of stuff we can talk about right after that.
Of course. So, as Arthur mentioned, my name is Sam Gibson. I'm the founder and CEO of Hadron Energy. I'm a mechanical and nuclear engineer. I attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and in my undergrad, I actually had a lot of experience not only researching what is known as microreactors and small modular reactors, but I also had some outstanding internship opportunities that I learned. When graduating, I was awarded two times Global Engineering Leader by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. I was also fortunate enough to be able to start my first business right out of college, and this was a HVAC company. So we were actually servicing on the cooling side data centers, remote communities, and some more of these industrial-based plants, such as manufacturing or even commercial, large apartment complexes, for example. We grew that business from 0 to 4 million in revenue in 8 months, backed by private equity. I then exited that to start Hadron Energy. So I'm now living in New York City, and we've got an outstanding team, mostly based in the San Francisco Bay Area, but we also have quite a few people here in New York City as well. So to this point, we've got about 20 people. We've raised 2.5 million in funding, and this is our first year in, but things are going very quickly. Most of the interest we're seeing are from family offices. That's where a good majority of our investments have actually come from. And we're really excited to share some more about our microreactor and about the opportunity as well.
So maybe the crypto business stole it from the energy business, but even back prior to doing the uh, cooling work that you were doing, it was decentralized, right? The whole idea is to get something closer to where the power was needed. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so with this power that we are building at Hadron Energy, they're called microreactors. And the way you could think about it, it's a miniaturized nuclear power plant using fission. So we have low enriched uranium fuel, which we have access to. It's very safe and contained. We have the proper containment infrastructure and everything. So um, this is what enables us to actually site these reactors close to where they'd be powering on site. And that's the best and, you know, biggest benefit really is decentralizing the grid and making it more accessible to areas that actually couldn't have access before. So that's a big selling proposition that we're building at Hadron.
So can we talk about the thing that everybody thinks about, the scare, nuclear hazards, all that kind of stuff? For just the general population, can you talk a little bit of how you've thwarted that risk?
Of course. So the word is so nuclear sometimes scares people, but what I think is important to know is the word nuclear comes from the word nucleus, and the nucleus just has protons and neutrons. All that this is it's physics. Basically, we have a huge fusion reactor above us called the sun, and it's around us every day. Nuclear reactors are actually the safest form of energy on the planet. They're very safe, but they also offer carbon-free power. So a lot of these things are very important to share. And actually, public sentiment has never been higher for nuclear energy. It's over 62% of Americans now support nuclear energy, and it's only growing, especially with this new demand from data centers, AI, and distributed energy needs. So that's where we're getting very excited as well, as the timing is absolutely perfect. And quite honestly, what we're doing is no different. It is very safe. Everything is contained, and we're following all the standards that are set. And the 94 reactors operating in the United States follow the same very strict standards. They've been operating very safely for decades on end.
So what is it that spooks people about this? Even though the sentiment is getting better because people, I mean, the sentiment's probably better about it for people that don't really understand the science, but have been convinced that it's getting safer. So what is it besides adhering to standards, which makes sense? I've actually toured a plant and seen all the
Mhm.
redundancies, the typical cooling tower plant um, many years ago. But this is, I've seen you put it in the back of a trailer on a pickup truck, right? And so
Yeah,
help people understand why you're comfortable with it and why the sentiment's getting better. Is there something about what you've discovered in technology that allows this to be safer thing to do?
that's a good question. So first, it's important to know like the history of everything. I can tell you, I'll break down that and then I'll share some common concerns that people have with maybe the industry or reactors in general. So historically, in the United States, we've only used light water reactors like operating commercially. And what we're doing at Hadron is that same thing, but taking it in a smaller and more contained form factor, which actually makes it far easier to control for us. It also makes it, again, far easier to contain, given it is very much smaller. Our microreactor produces 10 megawatts of electric power. That's enough for about 10,000 homes, just to give you a sense of scale. Whereas these full scale plants are about 1,000 megawatts or enough to power 1 million homes. So when you think of it in terms of that, uh, the footprint is drastically different. And nobody has ever actually commercialized one of these reactors that we are. So the footprint, the containment, and then relying on the safety standards that have been used in the industry, that's what makes it like inherently walk away safe. The term that is used in the industry is walk away safe.
Yeah.
That means absolute worst case scenario, what we can do is we can flood the reactor core with water and you can walk away. It's that safe. Nothing else would occur after just flooding the core with water. So that's the one thing I like to share. And we have multiple fail safes in place so it doesn't, even get to that stage, but that's the worst case scenario. And then one common misconception a lot of people have is, well, what about the radiation? And I'm happy to address like the elephant in the room. Usually that's everybody's biggest concern. And I think it really comes down to educating the public on how the spent fuel is handled, how it's stored. It's been successfully stored for many decades. And the way that you do it is you have adequate shielding, as I mentioned earlier. So when you take out these fuel rods, you can actually store them in a pool of water. Typically, it's, not a place people are going to be hanging out, obviously. But what happens is once this fuel is cooled in this pool of water, it then goes into what's called dry cask storage. And this is the long-term storage. Everything comes down to proper safety and shielding, and it's been done for many, many years. So we're just following the same things that have already been set out. So the one fun fact I like to share is it's kind of a question. I'll ask you the question. What do you think you get more radiation exposure from? Living by a nuclear power plant or eating a banana?
Yeah, well, I think it's a trick question, but I get it. Why?
It's a banana.
Yeah.
So all that to say, like you don't experience, especially if you live by a nuclear power plant, the people in the surrounding area are actually far healthier and happier given that there is no pollution. And, the areas that don't have nuclear power plants they're relying on, maybe fossil fuels, for example, they aren't as healthy. Obviously, they have more health problems. So that's something else that's really important.
Is do you see the use cases? Can you talk about the use cases coming out of the gate with your units where you see them being used? Is it primarily data centers or on top of high rises in New York City?
Yeah, so we wouldn't do on top of high rises in New York City. And quite honestly, most of the applications will be more remote or rural applications where it's very much out of sight, out of mind, powering, for example, industrial use cases. So data centers are really hot right now. They all need access to power. And we're having conversations with all the biggest hyperscalers right now. The thing is, a lot of the biggest data center plants that consume power that grab the headlines are the ones that are the gigawatt scale. Well, actually, the vast majority, numbers wise, are below 20 megawatts.
So
So that's really
you
interesting.
could put two units and satisfy their demand.
That's exactly right. But we will have what's called N plus one, where we have, if a site requires two units, we'll have three because of the redundancy that they, especially at data centers, need, because they need to have 100% uptime.
Yeah.
Downtime for them is devastating, and that's something that we will solve is 100% uptime.
So can we talk about the math? Is the We've gotten the science out of the way, we've gotten the safety out of the way. Is the math work? Meaning if you have a data center and you're considering powering it this way or that way, is it 110% or 150% more to get one of these things, but it's reliable? Let's talk about the I don't know, probably return on investment is not the right way to look at it, but the delta between this and
Mhm.
whatever else you might use, diesel, natural gas, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. It's a really good question, and there's many ways to answer it because what is most typical, for example, a data center, the useful life of a data center is about 20 years. And that's what the power purchase agreements we are selling will be, is 20 years. So if you look at the entire lifetime of not only our plant, but other forms of energy like natural gas, diesel would be probably the worst given the economics. I can tell you that in the long run, the more nuclear runs, the more profitable, the higher the ROI you would see. Because what it looks like on a graph, if you plot it, natural gas has sort of like a medium kind of cost across the board and then slowly starts to increase, whereas nuclear has kind of a little bit of a higher upfront cost. But as you like, that's like the first year basically. And then it is really, really low operational costs throughout the entire lifetime. So for natural gas, you probably have an inflection point of 4 to 5 years where it actually becomes nuclear becomes far more cost effective. And if you model it out, depending on the size and the timeline, nuclear could be anywhere between 2 to even like 10 times more cost effective in the very long run when it comes to natural gas. And quite honestly, that's probably the closest competitor, really, is natural gas. Given it's cheap, it's available. The thing is, of course, that it's still not necessarily 100% clean. So that's what's really important to consider. The capacity factor is something else you have to consider, given these data centers, which means nuclear has a 24/7 baseload power feature that's embedded in the laws of physics of how the thing works, whereas natural gas is only producing maximum power
Yeah.
61% of the time. Yeah. And so if you need to build more redundancy for natural gas than you would with nuclear, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
So are you ready to deliver these units?
So we've got our site selected for our first demonstration unit. We've got all of the partners lined up as far as the fuel supply chain, the power conversion supply chain side of things. And where we are right now is towards the end of this year, we're going to start procuring those items to build the first unit. And that's really what our current focus is closing this fundraising round that we're on, making some critical engineering hires. We honestly only need to make a few. Otherwise, we have some of the best engineers around already on the team from MIT, Berkeley, University of Michigan, and these are the top nuclear engineering schools around. So we've got that covered, but the production timeline looks like about 2028 is when we will have our first deployment producing revenue. And it mostly just comes down to the licensing timelines. We're working with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and it's actually been going very well for us.
And I'm going to get this wrong. You made some sort of announcement a few weeks ago, and again, I might get the time frame wrong, where the commission had recognized that you guys are going down the right path and granted you some sort of permission, right?
So not only are we listed on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's website, we're also actively facilitating their feedback on our application activities, which is a very, very positive thing. And we did that starting 11, like that occurred 11 months after we got started. Some companies even take 5 years just to get to that stage. So we've been really, quite honestly, moving very effectively when it comes to licensing.
Are there other, I'm going to ask this, but so in the last few weeks, I've gotten information from somebody else that's doing something similar to you. I have no idea
Mhm.
about that, but anything uh, precise about that. But are there others doing similar type efforts that are enjoying the type of uh, sentiment, praise, or comfort that you have? And also, there's probably plenty of room for plenty of people to do this, right? But are there others tracking with you and doing this sort of thing?
So quite honestly, there's a pretty limited amount of players in this industry because the thing is, it's such a high barrier to entry. The education required to undertake this sort of operation is very specialized. And, you know, I just got very lucky, quite honestly. I studied it out of pure curiosity. I didn't study it because I thought, you know, for other things, I just really enjoyed the material. And with that, like, it attracts the people that are very passionate about it. So in the microreactor industry, there are a few like other players, but they are having a very different approach. And we feel very strongly that based on all the public information about licensing, that we are absolutely at the forefront when it comes to licensing for microreactors. So the barrier to entry is high. there's only 15,000 nuclear engineers in America,
No
which is
kidding.
pretty crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So if somebody like uh Facebook is building a huge data center in Utah, it might even be done yet now, right? And there's probably dozens and dozens of others that are building. Would do you feel uh that somebody like that will just come in and buy you out, which might not be entirely a bad thing, but they'd
Mhm.
first put a bunch of orders in, let you demonstrate what you're doing, then they'll buy you out maybe. But is that
Yeah.
sort of the way you see this playing out?
The way I see it playing out, and I've done a lot of research on this, I actually see us in the near future, you know, looking towards the public markets rather than, of course, I'm going to keep the options open. I'm never going to say no. I'll always look at an opportunity. We've already had people come to me asking to acquire us, but I don't want to do that yet.
Yeah, yeah,
Now these big tech players, of course, they've got some interesting things going on with their data centers, and I'm happy to take a look at those kinds of things. But we feel to make this a really long-lasting brand, I think we need to, look towards the public markets in the future and really focus on our company. So those are the kinds of things I think about. But again, it's kind of a case by case basis. We'll see how, the like, offers shake out.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just wondering that if people are confident that you can deliver, right, then there's endless amounts of money that they'll throw at you to get
Yeah,
that upside, right? I mean, there's plenty of money around,
exactly.
right? Uh, so I'm just curious about, and you answered it. There's people that have offered to buy you out and that sort of thing, but um,
Mhm.
because I don't know if you saw Landman. Did you see Landman, the show, the series?
I don't think so. No,
Anyway,
no,
it's about the
no.
oil industry and it's Billy Bob Thornton and it's really well done. And he has this
Mm,
tirade about how, the a woman that he was talking to was worried about carbon footprint and all this kind of stuff. And she had really no idea what she was doing. She was just virtue signaling. And I'm saying that not because it's my opinion, but it's, that was the intent of the scene. And he just went on this
mhm,
tirade about, you don't understand. We have to deliver fossil fuels because unless we find something else, or else we're going to have a real big problem. So we have an energy demand that needs to be met no matter how you feel about fossil fuels, right? In the meantime.
mhm.
So, you know, it's my sense about what you're doing is that, if this really works, you can decentralize everything, right?
Exactly.
And you just what do you need? You just electricity to produce heat?
So, okay, so the way that it works is our reactor itself, we have these low enriched uranium fuel rods that are undergoing fission. And this fission process is it's the splitting of uranium atoms, and that process generates heat. This heat that we have is then gener basically transferred into electricity, and this electricity is then distributed to either the local consumer or the grid. We can do um, behind the meter, or we could do on the meter. But yeah, the way it works is it's a traditional steam conversion. So that's essentially how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, it's like a heat exchanger, right? More or
Yeah,
less.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's oversimplification, I'm sure. And I have no
yeah.
idea what I'm talking about, except that makes sense to me, right?
Mhm,
What about the regulatory, not regulatory, but so the if you want to put if you have a house and you put a roof on it, a Tesla roof or whatever they call it, with the panels, and you told the local
mhm,
electric company that you wanted to have extra batteries so you could store more power, they have some sort of authority apparently to say, no, 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 you can't store that much because that hurts our business model in some way. So we've managed to lobby the the the, the government to give us authority to limit how much battery storage you can have. Have you confronted any of the not just regulatory, but
Mhm.
the power companies, the incumbent power companies flipping out about what you're doing because it basically takes business away from them?
That's correct. So, um, quite honestly, what we have to do is work with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. As soon as we get these approvals, we then go to the states that we want to deploy projects in, and we work with them to get their basically blessing to deploy projects. And that's honestly quite promising based on what we're seeing, as there are 18 very pro-nuclear states, and we've already had a handful of them come to us, quite honestly, really like begging for our first deployment. So, because at the end of the day, it's access to clean power.
Yeah.
And if you go to any place in the United States that says, oh, it's, cost effective, clean power, where do I sign?
Yeah, right.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of interest.
And so give us an idea. Is a unit going to cost $4 million, $20 million, $3 million? What is this? What's the price tag on
Yeah.
something like this? Just to give the audience a sense of,
Yeah.
what type of capital CapEx would be required, right?
So the first unit, just so you know, they are expensive. It's 10 megawatts. And the first unit we're projecting is 50 million. However, this is what we're actually not trying to sell the reactors themselves. We're selling the power purchase agreement.
Ah, smart. Yeah.
So we're leveraging some project finance, and we have this equity base that we can build the rest of the product and take it from there. So if you look at it over the lifespan, the unit economics are very attractive. If we charge 15 cents per kilowatt hour, that generates 13 million in revenue per year per one reactor. So to give an idea, we're working on a proposal right now for a 200 megawatt data center. And that means we can line up 20 of these units in parallel. That's how they can operate. And you can kind of work the numbers of how big of an opportunity just that one project is.
So I don't know what a kilowatt hour really costs.
Oh yeah, I can.
There,
Yeah,
let me just say this only because the only reference point that I have is people building Bitcoin miners and trying to get the price down to 4 cents, right? So what do I have no idea. I don't look at my electric bill. I have no idea what I pay for it. But what is if you're charging 15, is that a good price, bad price? Where's that land in terms of give us some context, if you will.
it's a really good question. So when it comes to like grid scale power, what sort of like a very competitive price probably on the grid, that's going to be more about 6 to even as high as 10 cents sometimes per kilowatt hour. Bitcoin miners, for example, crypto miners are very, very sensitive and like sensitive to like the price, because it obviously affects their business model. But for AI workloads, if these data centers want 24/7 baseload power, they don't have any other option. Nuclear is it is the only option. Um, with that being said, it's a little bit more expensive to make right now, but as the costs continue to come down, obviously we can pass those savings on to customers. But I want to paint another picture, because remote communities, and this is an area that we're looking at as well, they are paying between 50 cents to a dollar per kilowatt hour. And these sometimes are for like diesel generators.
Ah,
And that is a massive problem because not only can we come in at like 15 cents or maybe a little bit higher depending on the location, not only can we come in there and have they will now have 24/7 power, it's now carbon free. So imagine what that does to the local community, like those kinds of things. And by the way, we can also leverage all of the tax credits. There's all these carbon
yep.
offsets and all these various things that we can leverage beyond that too. Yeah.
Is if the data centers don't have an option, they're doing something now. What are they doing to get baseload power?
They're relying on fossil fuels still. So um, they are purchasing, whatever they can get their hands on, quite honestly. Some even have to resort, I won't name names, but some have to even resort to like diesel. Um, like these things are not great. So that's what we're really looking to replace as much as we can.
Yeah. So whatever they doing to patchwork when it starts dropping below base load starts being incrementally more expensive just by definition, right? Or else they'd
Yes,
use it,
exactly.
right?
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, the biggest problem today is the supply cannot even it can't even get close to keeping up with the demand. And like basic laws of, economics, if you're on the supply side of something like that that is so highly demanded, then the product you have, I think, is very valuable to the, end user. So that's why we are in a good position, but it's a very important position to be on because we want to deliver power as soon as we can. So that's what I think is important.
Yeah. What and you may not want to or know how to answer this or only because how does it when a data center that's powering ChatGPT or Google search
Mhm.
or whatever, Facebook, how does it manifest itself when they drop below baseload power? It just takes longer for my search to get done?
So let me see. Let me make sure I understand your question. So you're saying, like, if so, we have like this base load power and we're producing energy, but you're saying if they aren't using the full base load power,
No, I'm sorry.
how does that, is that what you're saying?
No, it was a convoluted way to ask the question. Let me just make a statement. If the a challenge exists that there's not enough power to run these big data centers, I
Mm,
don't know it as a consumer, right?
I see what you're saying.
But they end up figuring out how to fix it on the back end by buying more expensive power. So it
That's
doesn't
correct.
manifest itself as as a consumer of a product, me, that I notice it. They notice it because it costs more. That's all, right? Is that fair to
Yes,
say?
that's fair to say
Yeah.
because they have to have redundancies built in. The one important thing there is especially AI data centers have massive swings
Yeah.
in the power that they draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild. All right, so let's talk about your raise. Can you repeat what you said, how much you've raised, and then talk about what would be helpful now?
Yeah, so right now we are raising our Series A round. Um, we're basically wrapping up some of the kind of, final investments in the seed round. The seed round we raised 2.5 million total and it was well oversubscribed. But now we're really looking to scale up quite rapidly. So this is why I've actually moved to New York City, and it's been very great so far. We're raising a total right now of 15 million, and it's progressing very well. A lot of discussions going on. Yeah, we basically just opened it not too long ago. I would say roughly like a month ago, and we've already gotten some indications of interest for, $5+ million checks. Um, Although, there's still room, as I mentioned, for potential opportunities. I'm not sure typical investment size of, your audience or connections there, but we're always open to having conversations, and it will be closing relatively soon. So I'm excited to share some more milestones as we continue to build. So this round is all about making the rest of the critical engineering hires, building the demonstration for licensing, and getting our license for the microreactor, which, if we do that in a timely manner, we'll be the first in the world to have a microreactor license. There's not another single one out there yet, which is a big push from our end. And then finally, um, working on that first unit to actually sell to the customer as much as we can. So that's basically what, we're looking to achieve.
Nice. And is the structure a safe or convertible node or something like that?
Yeah, so right now we've just been doing safe notes, although we do have term sheets we could share. Um, so yeah, convertible notes. We can also do straight equity, of course, but easiest thing for us to do is very quick. Safe notes are always really easy.
Yeah.
Convertible notes are easy. So yeah.
Yeah. So what do you uh and this is gonna sound like I want to bring politics in it, but I don't care one way or the other. Meaning I'm uh, even if it sounds that way, I don't care. And
Hmm.
right. Um, have you found you've been doing this for a while? Have you found
Hmm.
that the things that seemingly are opening up in this current administration to allow these type of things to happen without a lot of regulatory uh, uh, choke points, for example? Is it, are you optimistic that the narrative around saying we want to help Sam and every other entrepreneur progress,
Hmm.
so we're going to take some of these choke, is it happening? Do you see it happening in
I,
administration?
yes. So the nice thing is, firstly, nuclear is it has very strong bipartisan support. So first, that checks a huge box that, both parties really support this. And I think that's important. The second point I'd like to make is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, that is the overseeing body that we need to be working with. And they were already working on, improving their process. But then what happened was, this new administration came in and made these new executive orders, and they started pushing a lot more. So I think maybe it starts to really accelerate a lot of things. And quite honestly, I'm very optimistic, and we're at the forefront of it all right now. So that's what I think is really cool to see is support from both sides. Not only that, but also action being taken to accelerate licensing. So, and we've seen it firsthand as well. So it's working.
That's good to hear. Right now we've got Trump meeting with Putin in Alaska. Could be a
Yeah,
world-changing event, but stuff's happening. There's no question about that. I'm optimistic in general, but it doesn't matter what I think. I'm just wondering, like you say, you've seen things loosening up a little bit, so that's good. Yeah. Uh,
absolutely.
have you we talked a little bit about this, but have you seen somebody come in? Because there's people wielding big checkbooks that would like to either see you shut down or see you
Yeah,
prosper, but get the delta out of your, you know, valuation, right? Uh,
yeah,
are they are they are they knocking on the door and you have to refuse their checks, right?
absolutely. We've just before I got on this call, I got another email. Somebody emailed me a total of 3 times trying to acquire us already, as I mentioned. And been bigger players, like you're saying, that have talked to us, and it's not the time yet. This is like a really exciting time. So we want to really have this reach its full potential. It really has some serious legs right now, and things are going in the right direction. So that's what I think is important. And the thing that's important to know as well about our team is we're all very mission driven. We're driven by the milestones, by engineering achievements, these kinds of things. And we know that the rest really follows a lot, you know what I mean? So that's what I would say really differentiates us is we're really incredibly focused on the mission. So
And please don't take this the wrong way, Sam, but do you know it works even though you haven't
yes,
produced
we do.
a unit, right?
We do know it works. And the way that we know the reactor works is we're leveraging existing fuel bundles that are very well understood. And all that means is the most important component to a reactor is the core. So everything else surrounds the core. The core is what produces the heat. And we understand very, very well. We literally have it down to a science how this core behaves. And it's been reviewed many, many, many times by, as I mentioned, these major institutions that we are collaborating with, MIT, Berkeley, University of Michigan, and so on. And not only did we get a lot of internal, but we got external validation by doing a lot of that. So,
Yeah. Uh, is there a threat of somebody replicating what you're doing? And people often talk about patents as opposed to your trade secrets, right? Is
yep.
the can you talk a little bit about how you've approached that challenge?
Yeah, so we have filed multiple patents. Right now we have four, and it's only going to continue to grow as well. Again, nobody else has ever built a microreactor, commercialized it, anything like that, licensed it. So we're charting a lot of new territory. So of course we're going to protect, all of our inventions, and we're going to have a very robust IP portfolio. And there's always going to be the worry of, oh, somebody might try to come in and copy, but at the end of the day, this is such a massive problem. It's kind of a also slow moving problem. And it takes, again, a very special type of individual that I think is actually quite rare to start something from scratch and try to copy or, those kinds of things. So that's what I think.
Yeah. Um, the is it still make sense for the US to build big nuclear power plants? Do you think?
I think it absolutely makes sense to still build big nuclear power plants. Absolutely, because you get the economies of scale, and that's great. We need reactors of all sizes. I mean, that is like the most important thing because no one size is going to solve all the problems. We need to have big ones that can service big cities from many, many miles away. We need that, but we also need these smaller ones where the big ones can't go. And that's a massive gap to fill. So that's what the opportunity we're going to fill is.
So this question is going to reveal how little I know about the physics, right? Does the distribution latency differ from the power plant as opposed to the existing grid? In other words, does a nuclear power plant electric generation differ in how the power dissipates for transport, or is it the same?
Yeah. So for transport, the thing about transporting electricity or power is you lose a lot of power. It's very, very inefficient. I think it's only, I would have to double check the numbers. It's either you lose like 36% or you lose 65%. It's one of those two that's
Yeah,
it's
right. Yeah.
very drastic.
Yeah.
It's one of those two. Um, and that's when you look at transmission and distribution. So when it comes to timely um, consumption of electricity, obviously it makes a lot more sense to have it very close to
Yeah.
the site. Also, in terms of efficiency and cost effectiveness, especially of infrastructure, so you don't have to have all this transmission and distribution. That's a very big selling point because transmission and distribution equipment is also very much
CapEx, right? Yeah.
it's CapEx, but you also can't get access to it right now. It's for lack of better words, it's back ordered. You have to
Oh,
wait
you mean
many,
the
many years.
transformers and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
And
all of these
they
things.
explode and they have back doors by the Chinese people, allegedly. You know, the Chinese have back doors in those things, but I mean, that's some
Mhm.
conspiracy theory going around, but yeah.
Yes, like the we solve a lot of problems with having small distributed energy sources plugged into the site. And that's ultimately what a lot of, customers of ours need. And we're going to be servicing that market very soon.
Yeah. So one last thing, and it's going to be a science question, and we can bail on it if it's too complex. But the process is fission
Yep.
as opposed to whatever
Fusion.
fusion, right?
Yeah.
So give us the Reader's Digest version of why that matters.
So the reason that this matters, and it is very important, so I'm glad you asked it. So fission, fission is very well understood. This is what all 94 reactors in the United States are operating with. And there's 410 nuclear reactors around the world total, and they also use fission. There's not a single fusion reactor out there. Fusion is still a laboratory experiment. It's not going to be out for a long time. The difference, principally in the science, is fission is the splitting of uranium atoms, fusion is the joining of uranium or heavy
Both
atoms.
allegedly create heat, which turns into energy,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. So the fusion, sorry, I misspoke. Uh, the fusion is the joining of heavy atoms. It's not necessarily uranium.
Yeah.
Um, so, with that being said, what you have to have in the environment to conduct fusion is a very strong magnetic field. You also have to have incredibly high temperatures. Now, earlier I had the number on my mind, but I guess it kind of slipped my mind. It is like if you look it up, because I don't want to say the wrong number, the numbers that you have to have in degrees Celsius to conduct fusion are mind-boggling. It's hotter than the sun, and you have to have that on the Earth, and you have to have materials that can withstand not only that high temperature, but also this magnetic, field. So there's all of these things going on, and it's not solved yet. Fission is proven, it's solved. We've been using it for a long time. That's why it's really important because fusion will be many, many years until we can even talk about commercialization there. It's also going to be far more expensive.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well,
Yeah.
really, really happy that and appreciate that you came in to talk to us about this because this is bleeding edge stuff, right? And you don't
Yep.
hear it every day. So I super appreciate you doing this with us today, and we'll make sure everybody hears about it on our end anyway. and then
Mhm.
we'll publish this, and then also maybe we can have a chat offline about the raise a little bit if you want.
Sure thing.
Yeah,
This is great. Thanks for having me. And it was a great conversation. So
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Keep the science work up. It matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We're
yeah,
working on it.
yeah.
So
Great.
thank you again.
Thanks, Sam. Okay.
All right.
Take
Take
care.
care.